So when you're ready, climb on in.
On this episode of the DOT POD, Josh finds himself in a tight spot. But no worries, he's just trying out our brand new Confined Space Training trailer. Find out more coming up.
How you feeling, Josh?
Good so far. Well, I have some luck.
The New York State Department of Transportation presents the DOT POD.
And welcome into the DOT POD. I'm Josh Heller.
And I'm Anya Kardos.
And we are delighted to have you joining us. Well, today we are in beautiful Alexandria Bay on the banks of the St. Lawrence River here in New York with members of NYSDOT's Office of Employee Safety and Health who are engaged in new training to keep our employees and, in turn, the people we serve safe.
Our guests today are Scott Cornell and Dean Yauger, both DOT Safety and Health reps. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for coming out.
Good morning.
Can't wait to delve into and dig deep into some of this training, pun intended there. Scott, why don't you start off and tell us a bit about your background with DOT?
I started in DOT in 2007 and worked out of the Alder Creek and Old Forge sub-residencies until about 2019. And then I got hired on as a Rep 1 for safety out of Region 2 from 2019 to 23. And then in 2023, I got a promotion as a Rep 2 out of main office. Little personal history. Got almost 38 years in the volunteer fire service, and about that same amount of time I've been a basic EMT as well.
I would imagine that background has really informed you in this position here.
Yeah, the cross training between teaching confined space goes into the fire service as well, what I do, and then what I've learned over the period of years, I bring that into the confined space training as well.
And Dean, what
Morning.
about you? Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so 2.5 years I've been with the department, and unfortunately, because I feel like it should be longer. I really enjoy the job. My background is 23 years as a career firefighter, and so that's where all my confined space technical type stuff comes from. So, but being at the agency and serving the employees here it is rewarding. You know, sometimes because of the title safety, people look at us a little bit differently because we're, sometimes pointing out that they're wrong or doing things wrong, I should say. But, at the end of the day, as long as we communicate and make people go home safe at the end of the day, it's our job. And it is very rewarding.
And I want to talk a little bit about, the department as a whole, right? What it is you guys do as a whole, and also why we're here, right? Why you guys are in Alexandria Bay, why you're having this annual meeting with the entire department here. So talk a little bit about just the office, right, of employee safety and health, and what it is, what you do, and what your goals are, in that office.
I think it'd be easier to tell you what we don't do, honestly. We have great leadership. We have awesome support from the executive level right on down, and we'll talk, shortly about some things that are happening outside today here. But the support that we get is tremendous. And but Employee Safety and Health Office, everything from buildings and grounds inspections to safety procedures, PPE, work zones, right on up through, at all levels, we're involved and engaged. So, like I said, it's a very rewarding job. There's a lot going on. Accidents occur, injuries occur, and so we work with a lot of people. Other agencies, PESH and different things like that when investigations have to occur. So, there's a lot of paperwork involved, but primarily I think our end goal is safety coaching. That's what we do best.
The folks here during this training session, this meeting that you're having here, they are the trainers who are being trained to train others within DOT. And there's a rollout of brand new training that's going on as well. Can you talk about that? Why you feel that it's important, and a bit about what it is?
So as you can imagine, everything changes, right? Updates happen. Unfortunately, we learn from, real world incidents. So, updates change, changes happen to, rules and regulations and standards. So that's important. That information needs to get down to the end user. And so when OSHA makes a change or, some type of safety rule changes, we have to get that information out. So it allows us, to interact with our employees and build relationships. That's, communication is huge. It's key. And just allows us to be better at what we do.
Is there, obviously having everyone here today, you're trying to give everyone the broad overview, but there are, obviously representatives here from every region in the state, from, down in Long Island all the way out to Western New York, out in the Buffalo area. And the challenges, while overarchingly are the same, there are some unique aspects of it. How do you, how are you able to kind of walk that tightrope of this is generally speaking what needs to be done, but it also needs to be regionalized to where you are and the issues that you personally are running into, in your areas?
Well, we certainly have drawn upon other regions as far as Region 10 may do things differently than Region 5 or Region 6. And I know that there's been a couple of times with the training that we've provided that we've learned a couple of things from different regions, and we incorporate it into the training that we put on right now. Just because, Region 10, for example, has got so much traffic problems down there, and what they deal with is so much different than, say, Region 6 that, they don't have the traffic issues that 10 does.
So Region 10, by the way, for those listening who may not know, Region 10 is going to be Long Island versus Region 6 is, I believe it's the western southern tier.
Yes,
that's like
area.
Cornell area,
Yep.
Which is not nearly as populated as those areas, which is why, it's New York State is so interesting when dealing with this stuff, because, you have, just driving out here to Alexandria Bay through what's Region 7, which is the North Country, you have massive farms and big areas of open space. And a couple weeks ago, Anya and I were down in New York City, and you have none of that. And so it's a very interesting, being able to get the information across to people, even though their experiences, what they have experienced and what they will experience is going to be so different. That has to be a challenge.
Absolutely. I'm a little bit biased, but I'm going to say it anyways. I think Region 7 is the best in the state. But I'm fortunate I have 3 offices here. I have the Adirondack Mountains, the St. Lawrence Seaway, and then the regional office at the state office building. So, but within this region, like you said, it's everything from farmlands to, there's a couple small cities and things like that, and there's a couple interstates on each side of the region. So I think we get a little bit of everything.
Certainly the best weather.
Sure.
Certainly.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. Especially in January, February.
January, February. It's going to be
effect.
stunning.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you're going to come here, now's a good time. This is a good time.
Absolutely.
It's a good time to come up here. In a couple months, maybe not so much.
Yeah, we'd love to have you in January.
Let's talk about what's behind this training, in that I would imagine industry-wide, workers who do what we do at NYSDOT, you would encounter chemicals. You would encounter, we talked about, we're going to mention enclosed spaces. What do workers here come in contact with, and what are some of the training specifics that aim to provide, a wealth of knowledge so that they can handle those things confidently?
Well, when you get into, say, like drainage intake systems, everything that's topside ends up down in the bottom, and whatever's on the road surface is down there, and any fumes with the traffic going by takes the lowest center of gravity and it falls in the bottom of those drainage intake systems. So there's a lot of hazardous chemicals. There's critters that live down there that we don't like to come in contact with, but they like to live in those kind of environments. And so we got to really be diligent with testing those atmospheres to make sure that you're not conditioned to believing that you're prone from having any kind of an issue or accident or mishap.
I think also it's appropriate to mention, you asked about what employees are exposed to, and it's everything from, our maintenance assistants that are, dealing with paint and solvents and things like that, to chlorine systems at the rest areas because we treat our own water, and then whatever goes on at Central Lab that Scott's well aware of. But there's so many processes that happen cleaning processes, cleaning the trucks and the plows, and it's just they're exposed to a lot of stuff. So along with that, what's the side effects? Teach the employees so that they know. If I'm having a headache and I just got done using this, there's probably a reason for it.
I would imagine this goes down to like labeling and not mislabeling, or, so that there's no mystery behind what's in a box or what is down that hole. That is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. Yep. Everything, listen, you pick up a spray bottle that's got gasoline in it and it's labeled Windex, right?
Yeah, that's a problem.
It could be. Absolutely.
Right.
So, but yes, to take it even further, as Scott mentioned about the DIs, sharps, people are not handy about where they dispose of things nowadays. So, that's all stuff that our workers are exposed to.
Are there snakes down there? So I
100% there are.
I don't deal with snakes. I'm good with rats and mice.
You got Indiana Jones
I'm
here.
fine with all of those things. I don't care for snakes.
We can absolutely, we'll talk about this, and the people that are listening will absolutely know that have attended our classes. I don't like snakes either.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dean. Thank you.
So this begs the question, what is the oddest and strangest thing that you guys have come across, or the stories
that you can tell in a family-friendly environment?
I like to pick on Dean because he has an aversion with snakes. But when we went down to Region 6 and we stopped at a rest area, and they got signs down on the highway there that says, be careful of, the snakes. And they got a fence that the rattlesnakes that they have down there can't go through and harm people. And they were talking about when they were doing a paving project down there, and they just got done laying the mat down, letting it cool down. They come back from lunch, and there was like 200 snakes, rattlesnks, eating themselves up on it.
Right. So what the sign should say at the entrance is, "Don't stop here."
Yeah, that's 100% fair. That's fair. When I see a sign that says snakes, that is what I read.
Right.
Like, nope, this is not for
time
me.
to go.
Right.
This is not for me. Well, I do think it's important also to mention when we're talking about employee health and safety that there's a lot that's in the control of the employees, and we empower them to make these to take these trainings. But there's also a lot that's out of their control, and I think this is a pretty good time to implore people to drive safely when you're in and around these work zones. We talk about this, all summer long, but their safety, as much as it's in your guys' hands and in their hands, it's also in the traveling public's hands. It really is in such a way that literally lives depend on people obeying the rules, obeying the laws, and driving safely.
Yeah.
It's a simple thing.
Yeah, for sure. Work zone intrusions are, one is too many, obviously, but they happen almost every day. And as we talked about, like the Region 10 with so much more traffic down there. Yeah. Unfortunately, what comes with traffic is incidents. Yeah. And work zones are important. And, that's part of what we do as far as the work zone training. Work zone coaching, I believe, is what it's called. But there's a proper way to set up a work zone. Proper signage and spaces between cones and so on and so forth, tapers and different things. So that's all part of what we do. And but the whole purpose of that is to keep our employees safe.
Plenty of NYSDOT workers find themselves in challenging spots, challenging spaces. Let's talk about Confined Space University and your brand new training trailer for confined space work. Talk about that.
So, when I first started with the agency, we had an incident that occurred. We had a couple of incidents, near fatal incidents, and the attention. Obviously, when things happen like that, the attention flag went up, and so we started having a conversation, in the office about what we could do, how we get the message out there, go to this region and do some initial training, get those folks trained up. So in the process of that, with Scott and I were chosen primarily because of our background, and we've just kind of run with it. And so we went down there, did the initial training, and in the process of that, Scott and I on the ride home started brainstorming. Geez, wouldn't this be neat if we could do this? And the fire service, when it comes to training props, real world training is the best thing you can do, right? So, or as near real as you can get. So we come up with this idea, and as we just talked about with snakes and different things, when we go to a residency and do this training, sometimes the conditions or the site that we use isn't conducive to a safe environment. We've been to places where we've checked the site the night before and done air testing and things for ourselves to make sure that it's good to go. And then we get there the next morning and it's full of water, or it's the area around it slippery and muddy, and it's just not conducive to a good, safe training environment. So we come up with this idea, and we gave it to our bosses and said, here's what we think. This is what we'd like to do. This is our concept. And neither one of us are artists, I guess. So we drew it basically on a napkin and said, here, let's have this conversation. And, our bosses said, yep, absolutely. And next thing you know, we're standing in front of Mr. Fitch having a conversation and explaining, what's happening and where we're going. And, I guess we did a pretty good job explaining it, because we have a trailer here today to show people. So
now, previous to the trailer, you would do this at where would you do these? Would you do them in actual manholes? I mean, where were you actually doing the training prior to this?
So we've had some residencies that were kind of proactive and built an above ground DI training site for us. There's other residencies that we've used a manhole in the parking lot. It's kind of hit and miss, and again, as I described with the mud and different scenarios, it's now with this trailer, we're going to bring the training site to them, and it's 100% safe.
Now, before we get into what specifically happens in the trailer and what the training represents, you mentioned that there were some, real world reasons for this training to happen. Can you go into that a little bit into why this came about, and more importantly, why it's so crucial?
So the situation is an employee enters a confined space and knowingly and does it on a regular basis. And by that, I mean, every 3 or 4 months. Problems with the chlorination system and the chlorine. And so he has a process that he goes through and enters the space after being notified on a, Sunday afternoon off time. And he much like some of our employees, he responded and dealt with the situation. And unfortunately didn't let anybody know that he was going to be there. So he was performing the work basically unsupervised. Not that he needed a supervisor, but nobody was aware, right? So things went bad, and he was exposed to chlorine, pretty significant concentration of chlorine, and it affected him almost immediately. And discussing it with him, it's pretty heart-wrenching, actually, to have that conversation, because the things that he's went through that day and subsequently after that, the psychological effects, it is absolutely heart-wrenching. And he's back to work, thankfully, and performing his job, and he's one of those dedicated employees. But that incident, as I said, the flag goes up, and we got to do something, and so we did. There was a need for people to be, one, educated that these are the rules, and two, here's the equipment. This is what's available to you. This is how you use it. This is how you take care of it. This is how you inspect it. Again, it's just another service that we can provide and help employees understand, what's required of them, number one, and two, it's not mundane. It's going to help you and save you and make you go home at the end of the day safe. So
this more robust training through the Confined Space University also includes monitoring air, I would imagine. It just goes through what kind of a list do all these workers who go into these spaces need to check off before they even enter that space now?
Well, they really should start with a hazard assessment form, and it only takes about 2 or 3 minutes to fill it out. And pretty much like any other job, if you're going to go out to do any kind of repair, you got to have, an equipment list. You got to have a materials list. You got to find out the scope of the work that needs to be done. With that, you need to find out the scope of what you're going to be dealing with and what safety parameters you're going to have to consider. Going back to what Dean was referencing earlier, that particular employee that was exposed to chlorine gas, when he was telling us the story of him being pretty much had a self-rescue with the concentrations of chlorine gas that he was exposed to, when he was transported to the hospital, the EMTs and the driver of the ambulance had to let him off gas from his exposure 20 minutes before they can transport him, because there was no way that they safely could transport him with the amount of chlorine gas that he was off-gassing off his clothing. So if
That's for their own safety.
Yes. So, when you do a hazard assessment form and, you got to test that atmosphere, you got to test this, make sure there's no dangerous chemicals down there. There's no dangerous gases. There's, you don't have steam down into the space that you're working in, or you have electricity that's down there that needs to be locked out. So there's so many different variables that exist when we go into these spaces, and a lot of people get really conditioned. Well, this is the way we've always done it, and I've never had a problem. But, to move forward, it's 2024, change is hard, but this is what we're trying to do, is trying to change people with their thought process. And, with you doing a hazard assessment form, you're testing that atmosphere. You're testing, all right, well, we might need to have an utility company come out and identify, well, we got electrical hazards down here. We got to isolate that power so that our employees are not going to be subjected to an electrical shock.
I want to say, if you would, take us through what happens during, the training specifically. So I had a chance to take part in it earlier, but I want you guys to walk through a little bit what that training is like with this new trailer, and what the person who's doing it is actually going to be going through.
So we start you're talking about the university.
Yes.
Yeah. So we start with the fall protection portion. Again, this is what's available to you. Here's the OSHA rules, what's expected of the agency, what's expected of each employee. We have a huge variation of different types of harnesses and fall arrest systems and things like that that they can see, put their hands on, make sure they can put it on and fit it to them, just because there's so many different versions. And so we give them the opportunity to see what's available, put it on, fit it to them, understand, sizing, because sizes are different. But the university itself, fall protection, first part, and then the confined space portion kicks in with, again, talking about rules, regulations, what's expected, where we're going with this, why we're here, so that we can prevent it from happening again. And then we do a hands-on portion where we actually set up the tripod, put somebody in a harness, the roles and responsibilities of the people that are doing it, the entry, the attendant, supervisor, and what's expected of them, that hazard form that Scott was talking about, and the actual permit itself, and what's the record keeping processes for that, and requirements for by the agency and also OSHA. So over the 2 days, it's a lot of talking, really, for us, but we've had really, really good feedback. But it's been fun. It really has been a lot. It's a lot for us, traveling the state, doing our regular duties at the same time. But the opportunity to meet the employees, there's a lot of great people work for DOT. Mm-hmm. And definitely. I'm not saying that just because I'm here. That's 100%. And I can't stress enough the importance or the attention that we get from the executive level. The support that we get from them right down to our bosses, the directors, is just, it's amazing. It really is. And safety is number one, and they don't just say it. They walk the walk. And it seems like every time we have a meeting like this, there is new equipment. Whether it's chlorine meters that existed because of an incident that occurred, right? So everybody got a chlorine meter. But the list goes on. There's a lot of support that we get from management, and I can't stress enough. It's just that good.
So For this annual meeting, you guys brought this brand new confined space trailer. It's basically a mobile unit, right? To bring this training to various regions, right?
Yep. As I said, we're bringing it a safe space, right? That's what we're calling it. So we're bringing the training site, and now that it's mobile, it's one-stop shopping. So it has TV screens, it has all the harnesses, the tripods, and everything. So everything is done one stop, and we're going to be able to bring it, leave it at a residency for a couple of weeks. The local regional safety rep will have ownership of it for that time, and we can be able to touch that many more people. Right now, we're only doing 40 people because of limitations on classrooms and things like that. So.
One quick question before we wrap up, and it's clear to us, I think, and probably to our listeners, you guys take a lot of pride in what you do and the difference that it makes. You see these people here, your coworkers here, but just there are thousands and thousands of DOT employees, and making sure that each and every one of them is able to do their job and do their job safely and get home. That has to be something that you guys really take to heart. This isn't just this isn't a job. That has to be a passion. 100%.
Yep, 100%. I mean I don't even know how to describe it really. It is exactly what you just said. If I get a phone call or a text message or an email that says somebody was hurt, I feel like we didn't do our job. And I think every one of us, the entire group, is that way. It's our job. At the end of the day, if someone gets hurt, we own it. We absolutely own that. And it's our job to prevent it from happening again, for sure. But the passion of this group is, it's a good group. Our group, everybody gets along good. If I don't know something, I can pick up the phone and I can call any one of the regions. And if they haven't experienced it, they're experiencing it now, or they're going to very soon, right? So every day, we learn every day. And, that's, if we don't give that information out, then we're not doing our job. So
it sounds like you guys are really opening up a lot of ears, eyes, and minds to what's going on, and that's a wonderful thing, and I can't wait to see where this training takes you. So thanks so much for joining us
guys,
today.
thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
This is fantastic, and I also want to once again reiterate that while safety is the responsibility of everyone at DOT, it's also the responsibility of every driver out there on the road every single time you get behind the wheel. So please, we implore you, keep our teammates safe.
Mm-hmm.
It's we're DOT's doing their part to try to make sure that everyone is safe and gets home, but again, a lot of that is dependent on the drivers as well. So please do your part and make sure that they can get home as well.
And move over.
Move
over.
Give
them
over.
some room.
That's about going to do it for us here from the DOT POD. Anya, really interesting one today. Really good one.
Yeah, it's fascinating to lift the veil, so to speak, and really see what kind of training's going on to keep not only our workers safe, but also the general public safe at the same time. Really cool stuff. And I can't wait to kind of revisit this in the future and see how it all ends up and what new and innovative stuff they bring to the table.
Well, we want to make sure we thank once again our guests, Dean Yauger and Scott Cornell. Also, a special thanks to Kevin Knitsky, who helped us with the actual training itself. And of course, thanks to Cody Baker and Matt Petrie, and really everyone from the Office of Employee Safety and Health for welcoming us in to this great event here today. So thanks to all of them, and thanks to you all for tuning in to this episode. Hopefully you enjoyed. Reach on out if you'd like. Find us at podcast@dot.ny.gov. That's podcast@dot.ny.gov. We'll be back next time right here on the DOT POD.
Tell me how that felt.
It was good. It's a little tight down there, but it's not too bad. And coming up is a little uncomfortable, but works.